The Little Mermaid 2: Return to the Sea. Among all of Disney's direct-to-home media follow-ups, this is possibly the most divided. There aren't many animated features that have both a prominent cult following and a group that despises the film at the same time, especially playing in the factor that this is the sequel to one of Disney's most beloved and historically significant animated films. People either hate the movie so much to the point of placing it among Disney's worst sequels, or they love it so much that they consider the film to be a solid expansion to the Disney classic and was a major hit when it was released back in 2000. Some of them even go as far as call Melody one of their favorite Little Mermaid characters. Funny enough, this won't be the first time that I'll be reviewing a Little Mermaid direct-to-home media follow-up, since a while back, I did look at the prequel that Disney made called The Little Mermaid: Ariel's Beginning. And while it wasn't a great film, actually I wouldn't even call it a good film, but to its credit, I saw it, and some of Ariel's sisters are hot. Okay, maybe finding good things to say about that movie is harder than I thought. But now that we are going down to the sea with the sequel, can Melody provide an adventure as extravagant as her mother's? Or should we return this whole movie to the sea and let the fishes deal with it? Let's find out. The story. If you're watching this, then there's a very good chance that you are familiar with the story of Disney's The Little Mermaid, where a mermaid princess falls in love with a human and makes a deal with a sea witch for her to become human in exchange for her voice. Now, imagine if you take that plot, reverse the need of the protagonist so that she wants to go from human to mermaid, get rid of some of the essential details to save time, and you pretty much get Return to the Sea. The biggest and most common criticism the movie receives is the fact that the story is way too similar to the original, even to the point that it can be considered a complete rehash. And honestly, I gotta take the side with the critics on this one because, in lack of a better term, this just feels like a completely watered-down version of what I already had before. The plot points are the same, with the lead wanting to be a part of another world to achieve her goal. The type of conflicts are the same, with her parents showing tough love of not letting her go to that other world. Even the villain is pretty much Ursula. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's not Ursula, it's
Ursula's crazy sister!
It doesn't even hide that the plot is mostly copying its predecessor, and it's not even doing anything clever with that notion. Whenever they do acknowledge it, it's usually the recurring characters getting tired of the fact that they have to go through this trouble again.
Come back here! You're just like your mother.
However, it is true that there are some notable differences between this and the original. Other than the fact that the lead wants to become a mermaid, of course. And yet, those differences are what makes this movie so much worse. Whenever the film tries to add something new, it significantly devalues the writing by filling the rest with tiresome cliches to make the plot even more predictable than it already is, and some new characters that get quickly annoying with their supply of failed comedy. All set in a tone that can be best described as melodramatic that you'd expect from a satire, yet it's somehow taking itself seriously with it. And because of that, it simultaneously makes the movie feel both rushed and frustratingly slow. Since it is only 75 minutes long, the flow of the storytelling is too quick where it feels less natural and more want to establish what is currently happening so it could jump to the next scene sooner. Yet with how unengaging this is and how it keeps reminding the viewers that this is so much like the original, it's one of those movies where the most disheartening part of the experience is checking the time to see how much of the movie there is left, and it's actually more than you think. Having a bad story is one thing, but when the movie keeps reminding its audience about a better film that they should be watching instead, it's almost as if the feature is trying to sabotage itself to have people not want to watch it. The animation. Okay, I know that some of you are probably here to listen to me smash this movie to pieces for everything it has, but if I could be fair for just a moment, if there is one positive thing to say about The Little Mermaid 2, it's that the animation is actually pretty good. Like, on its own, it is well crafted, and there is some noticeable effort put into it by the animators. Of course, I won't say that it's fully feature quality and that there are times when it shows when there were some shortcuts taken, but other than that, it does what it can in order to stay true to the style of the 1989 film. The designs remain appealingly the same, with the humans having more natural details and the animals having a cartoonier look to let them be more animated and livelier. The backgrounds are painted very nicely to help bring audiences back to immerse themselves in Ariel's castle and under the sea in Atlantica, and the character animation has a smooth flow to their movements while giving room for them to be expressive and take advantage of visually presenting their personalities. Another impressive feat is how they use visual effects. The first Little Mermaid is often praised for its use of innovative effects to make the movie feel like it is believably set mostly underwater. And the sequel does try to recreate that, like with the use of lighting and, of course, water, which are most prominent during the action scenes.
I have the trident now, and all the creatures of the sea are in my power!
Now, I know that I might be getting weird looks for giving the visuals credit because, well, how could you say that the animation is good when it looks worse than the first, right? That is true, and that is why I said that the animation is good and not great. On its own, it stands well as a solid-looking feature. But the big criticism with the animation is that it's not trying to be its own thing. It wants to be like The Little Mermaid. Yes, it is a sequel and it has to stay true to the look of its predecessor, but it is obvious that it didn't have the resources nor the materials needed to recreate that animation. And this isn't just any animation that they want to recreate. This is Disney Renaissance animation, some of the greatest and most admired of the medium. It is a ridiculously high bar that, even nowadays, very few animators could achieve. And considering that this is still a direct-to-home media sequel, of course is a visual downgrade when going from the first to the second, because the latter wants to achieve something that is unreachable for them. They know that they can't, but they'll try anyways. Yes, it is no Little Mermaid for sure, but the animation is still not bad for what it is. The characters. Well, if this is a movie that will be mostly the same as the first, then that would mean that the characters will still be the same, right? Coming back in a new adventure, but mostly be themselves like how audiences loved them before. Now that is some wishful thinking. Yes, a lot of them have returned, but they all have to step aside in order to make room for their new main characters. Those anticipated to see more of their old friends like Scuttle, Sebastian, Flounder, and more will be disappointed to find that most of them have been turned into one-dimensional tropes. Scuttle is the easily forgettable one, Flounder is now a dad that is also Ariel's old friend, and while Sebastian can be perceived as his usual frantic self, his shtick is that he's getting too old for doing the same thing as before.
I'm too old for this. A crab my age should be retired. Getting a tan, playing sea golf, sipping a tuna colada. Not babysitting another teenager.
However, if you are in need of some actual comic reliefs, then the movie did create a new dynamic duo named Tip and Dash, a couple of Timon and Pumbaa knockoffs that want to become heroes. And if they don't entertain you, then they will certainly make your viewing experience a lot cringier. But as people return to the sea in this sequel, the new Little Mermaid that they follow is Melody, the daughter of Ariel and Eric, who is a lot like her mother. In fact, she's almost identical to her in every way, with the only exception of her black hair. Now that she became 12 years old, she's a lot more rebellious and has a fascination with the sea that her parents forbid her to go. They even did some Arendelle-style parenting and block her in the castle by building a whole wall so that she wouldn't even have access there. But regardless, she still has her own ways around it, and will do everything to spend her life in the sea than not fitting in on land, even if it means running away from her loved ones and making deal with those she probably shouldn't.
Maybe I could get it back for you.
You would do that for me?
If I did, would you make me a mermaid? Forever?
Even longer if you like.
As you can tell, she's following her mom's fins almost the exact same way. But what Melody doesn't have compared to her mother is a legitimate motive to do so. Technically, yes, it did try to say that she's looking for a place where she can feel like she belongs, but it also established that she's been sneaking out for a while and was always interested in the sea. Sure, Ariel's motives in the first film wasn't that deep either, but at least she had a straightforward and understandable excuse that she wants to take off her seashells and go down where it's wetter with some guy she saw. Melody wants to be a part of the sea world because the water looks cooler and she gets to turn off her angsty teen mode there. Speaking of Ariel, as a main character that became a parent, she grew to become like her father, where she's always worried about her kid's safety, and while she can be tough, she just wants what's best for her. And then there's
Ursula's crazy sister!
the one and only Morgana, assisted by a pair of manta rays and a shark named Undertow that's constantly mad by how he's been shrunken down. Basically, she is Ursula. She has the same abilities, the same goal of getting the trident to rule the seas, the same devilish personality, and even has Pat Carroll doing the voice. The only real difference is that Morgana was given serious mommy issues, and that's it. If the movie is going this far to recreate Ursula, then why not just bring Ursula back? Why not say that she survived the boat stab and all it did was literally trim out the fat where she lost half her weight? Sounds convoluted, but hey, makes as much sense as
Ursula's crazy sister!
And the funny thing about her is that even if she is Ursula's crazy sister, she's actually pretty entertaining. I mean, it is still mostly Ursula after all, so she still has that enjoyable attitude and great performance by Pat Carroll.
I didn't miss the cake and ice cream, did I?
Morgana!
Ursula would have simply loved to have come, but something came up. Now, what was it? Oh, yes. You all shish kebabbed her!
She is technically one of the better parts of the movie, but it's just that the film keeps trying to sell her as a new character when they obviously wanted to have Ursula back. Yes, a lot of these characters have returned, but they've all been demoted while the new ones are just there to recreate the original story. The songs. I'll just say now that there isn't a lot of songs in this movie like before. In total, the film only has 3 musical numbers to prominently display without counting the last one at the end, since that is just a reprisal of the first. There's Down to the Sea that brings everyone back to celebrate Melody being born.
There is no hesitating. Today we're celebrating Ariel's melody.
There's For a Moment, where Melody expresses her freedom during her first experience as a mermaid.
This is more than my thoughts ever thought it could be. For a moment, just a moment, lucky me.
And there's Tip and Dash, their theme song in a sense, meant to motivate the duo to be the heroes that they want to be.
Dip and daring dash, adventurous slash explorers. Titanic dip and daring dash, adventurous slash explorers.
I know that there was no way for this movie to recreate the magic of the original, since that has one of the most memorable soundtracks from Disney. But those 3 here are forgettable at best and intolerable at worst. Again, it does try to be like its predecessor, and I'll give it that the composition and the score isn't bad at all. But what kills these songs are the lyrics. Oh, these aren't the kind that came from the mind of Howard Ashman, that's for sure. These are just tacky lyrics that either revolve around the new characters, or, in For a Moment's case, tries to make the sequel version of Part of Your World. Down to the Sea is so direct about the movie's situation about all the characters getting excited to first see Melody, and if you're not a fan of Tip and Dash as characters, you certainly won't be enjoying their number. I won't go as far and say that they are the worst, but what makes them fail is how the film's other aspects fail. Rather it be having a story that's too familiar to be engaging, reminds you of what they already did in the last film, or be about characters that aren't as memorable as the recurring ones. In this case, the songs could only be as good as the movie's other elements. In fact, because there was only 3, I sometimes forget when watching this that this was even a musical in the first place. It's like they were added not because the filmmakers had an idea for this to be a musical follow-up, but because it's just a means to replicate the tone of the first. The music itself is fine, but the songs are the kind that not even a mermaid could make them sound lovely. Just when you think you want to return to the sea so you could be a part of that world again, you end up coming back to a bunch of poor, unfortunate souls. The Little Mermaid 2: Return to the Sea is one of the shining examples of why Disney's direct-to-home media animated sequels has such a really bad reputation. It may have a few good elements to it, like some decent animation and a nice score, but with writing that is as disastrous as this, with a story that is too dependent on copying the original, songs that are nowhere near as strong as the ones from before, and the characters that are reduced to tiresome tropes, running gags, and obvious recreations, it results in an unpleasant experience that fails to hide its true intentions as a soulless product meant to capitalize on the success of The Little Mermaid. Because it tries so hard to be like The Little Mermaid, the only question that it makes me ask during my viewing is, why am I watching this when I could be watching the original instead? I get the same thing as this, but better in every way. I know that there are those fans that are nostalgic for this, or Little Mermaid superfans that consider this important, and for them, more power to you. You have fun with Melody. But for me, I won't be returning to this sea anytime soon. And instead, I'll just leave the Animat seal of garbage here, and I'll just go back down where it's better and down where it's wetter with Ariel. Take it from me. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I think it is safe to say that, as you can tell, I am not a Melody fan. I mean, seriously, if the movie is going to be so desperate to try to be like The Little Mermaid instead of being its own movie that can feel like a respectable sequel to The Little Mermaid, then why don't I just go and watch The Little Mermaid instead? I mean, technically, that movie is exactly like The Little Mermaid 2: Return to the Sea, but way better in every way. But anyways, I am so glad that I'm finally done with that movie, and that now I can go and move on to a Patreon request. And this time around, it shall be from Peyton Michael. So I would like to start off by saying that if you guys would like to be like Peyton, and you would like to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to watching my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to go and suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So, the big question is right now is, what is it that Peyton asked me to review? What is his movie request for me to go and look into? Well, luckily, Peyton is going to take me far away from the seas. Way, way far away to Paris, France. A place that will be much better than what we have just experienced here, where we will learn the true meaning of how anyone can cook.